Today is Saturday, August 24th. Would you say you're good at managing your time? For a lot of us, it can feel like an ongoing struggle. And the traditional advice maybe helps for a day, a week, maybe a month. But then we're back to the way things were. That's why today we're talking about a different approach by bringing on one of my favorite people for how to manage our time and our lives overall, Kendra Adachi, better known as the Lazy Genius. She's a New York Times bestselling author and the host of the Lazy Genius podcast. I'm so excited for her new upcoming book, available for pre-order now, called The Plan, Manage Your Time Like a Lazy Genius. Kendra Adachi explains what's missing from mainstream advice about time management and what we can do instead to better suit our own individual lives and the seasons we're in. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Kendra Adachi, thank you for joining us once again on the Newsworthy.
I'm so happy to be here, Erica. Thanks for having me.
So I just want to dive right into, what do people get wrong about time management?
We have been taught that big solutions and systems and integrated plans are the answer to our problems. And that if they're not working, if those plans and systems are not working, we are the problem. And I'm just here to tell you that's not true. The biggest thing that we get wrong is that we think that time management should be oriented around greatness and optimization and doing everything the absolute best that we can do it, and all in service to this invisible future that we're trying to reverse engineer our way to. And when you organize your time around something that you have no control over, and around something that is actually not attainable or sustainable for most people, you are going to be tired. I don't know if you or anyone else feels this way, but you are going to be tired.
It's so true, because the words that come to mind when you think about time management is productivity, optimization, getting more done, as you said. And I'm just stressed out saying those words out loud.
I know. It feels like my body, when I hear those words, it's like our bodies just go on high alert. We sit up straighter. We're like, okay, I guess I've got to do this. Or we just slink down into nothing because we know we don't have the energy to do any of it. Why don't we just try to be ourselves today and be kind to who we are today and get what we need to get done today? And if we don't, if we're not able to, if that to-do list is left unchecked, we can actually pivot around that obstacle. We can stay kind to ourselves. We can recognize that what is happening today is just today, and we can start again tomorrow and be kind in all of it. There's a relaxation around that way of thinking that I think we all really need.
Just for anybody who's not as familiar with you as I'm sure many of us are, give us just an idea of what the Lazy Genius title comes from and kind of the basic concept behind that.
A lazy genius is someone who is a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. And what is so important about that is each individual person gets to decide what matters to them in the season that they are in. There are certain stretches of months and even like a singular week. You know, if you have like a big project at work that you have to finish, if you are trying to, get your kids to school and you're hustling through the doctor's appointments and the school supplies and all of those things, in many ways, that is a very tiny little season of life. And in that season, what really matters probably is to make sure that your kids have what they need, is to make sure that they're rested before they go to school. Like, you get to decide what those things are, but then you also get to decide, these are the things I'm going to let go, because not everything can matter at once. It just cannot.
And I'm so excited for your new book, The Plan, Manage Your Time Like a Lazy Genius. Can you reveal for us what the acronym PLAN stands for?
PLAN stands for prepare, live, adjust, and notice. And the problem with the productivity industry and a lot of the books that we have all read, they have a lot of great ideas, but they are inflated in the preparation area. We're going to get things in place. We're going to set goals. We're going to make lists, and it's going to be spread out over a certain amount of time so that it can all get done. What that does is it sort of keeps us in this like hyper-aware posture, and we're not really responding to what is happening in our lives. So Plan is an acronym where we are treating all four of those things with equality, with like balance. That's how you are a human. It's not that we're not planning anything at all, that we're not preparing anything at all, that we're just throwing all productivity out the window. It's that preparation needs to be in balance with adjusting to what you need right then, to noticing what is happening around you, and then to actually living and enjoying your life instead of just constantly preparing for it.
And I love that you bring this up because like planning itself can be a lot of work. And I've heard a lot of people talk about the mental load of parenting or keeping the house together or whatever it is that you're planning in your life right now. So I think you bring up some great points about you have to adjust, you have to notice. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how to get yourself to even take that first step though? Because planning can feel like such a big thing to do. Is it about getting your system in place? Is it about getting your family involved? What's the secret sauce to planning, making that part better or easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're going to hate my answer. And the answer is there is no secret sauce because every person is different and every person is going to need different things. But the two principles I would give to anyone who is getting started in whatever capacity, the first is to start small. Because when we start big, very rarely will the system that we build work for longer than a couple of days. The systems that actually work for us are systems that are adjusted in small steps over time, that you iterate based on what you need. And then the other principle I would say to begin with is to be kind to yourself. You put things in the correct perspective. You're not also carrying shame that you don't have the system ready to go, or shame that, man, I don't meal plan, or look at when you drop your kids off at school and you see other families making different choices than you that in your own head you think are better, maybe, and then you beat yourself up for whatever choices you did make. So kindness and starting small, they're not very sexy answers. They can't really fill a whole book. They don't build a whole system, and that's the point, because the big system is not going to save you. Kindness in the small moments is where we begin, and if you get into a practice of that, a lot of actual practical system building over time can happen.
I love that. Can you give just an example of what one small step might look like?
Let's say that your meal planning is kind of your thing, your problem that you want to solve. It's your biggest challenge. I would ask yourself, okay, what is my problem here? I want to make my problem smaller. Because if you just say, I never know what we're going to have for dinner, that's too big. Or I'm not good at meal planning. That is also too big. What do you mean? Is it that you have too many things that you're choosing from? Is it that you actually don't feel equipped to cook food? Is it that you have a family of picky eaters? And so making your problem smaller allows you to actually take a small step in the direction of a solution. One of mine is I'm married and I have 3 kids. So I have 5 people who live in our house and eat the meals, right? So I would always be so overwhelmed by the fact that I couldn't seem to make a meal that everyone liked at the same time. If you don't name your specific problem and you're like, it's just too hard to cook, then you're going to start spending money in places you don't need to, time in places you don't need to. Do you know what small change I made? I was like, all right, if this meal gets 3 out of 5 like okays, like if 3 out of 5 of the humans are like, yeah, this was fine, I'm going to call that a win. I just changed how I saw it.
Yeah, I was going to say normal life is key because I think a lot of what we think we see on Instagram or whatever is not necessarily normal life, or it's the highlights of people's lives. And too often we can compare ourselves.
That's right. We're not throwing big planning and productivity and systems out the window. But if you start there, you're just going to stay tired. So start where you are today. Start small where you are today. And it's going to give you the energy and the margin to move in the direction of those broader systems that will actually work for you.
Okay, I know you might have this next question. What about to-do lists? Should we still use them? Next up, we're talking about the lazy genius approach to to-do lists, including the one thing she says you should never put on that list. Also, Kendra Adachi explains how our hormones, personality, and sleep can impact time management and why those should not be ignored. That and more coming up next in our conversation. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. It's such a great feeling to relax on a weekend night, especially after we put our kiddo to bed. But I was realizing my boring shorts and t-shirt were just not meeting the moment. Enter SKIMS Soft Lounge Sleep Set, The second I put it on, I feel cute, cozy, and ready for the type of relaxation I deserve. I love that it matches, that the fabric is super soft, and that I just feel great in it. It feels like a luxury, and yet it's so simple. The same can be said about my soft lounge long slip dress. I can throw it on for a night out on the town or keep it casual while on the go. And either way, I feel confident and comfortable. Everything I get from SKIMS always feels so great right out of the bag, probably the softest items I own, and they all hold up wash after wash too. Shop the SKIMS Soft Lounge collection at skims.com. Now available in sizes extra, extra small to 4X. If you haven't yet, be sure to let them know I sent you. After you place your order, select The Newsworthy in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Quince. I'm always super impressed looking at all the cute options from Quince. It has everything I need or want, from washable silk tops to linen pants to cashmere sweaters from $50, even luggage for my next vacation. So I know as I shift my wardrobe from summer to fall, Quince offers everything I need with timeless and high-quality items, ensuring my wardrobe stays up to date and I don't blow my budget. Because all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. So I love that. I can feel good when I shop with Quince, and I also feel good in their clothes. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/newsworthy for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/newsworthy to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to our conversation. In your new book, you mentioned a framework called Lighten the Load. Can you explain that one?
It's basically a new way to look at your to-do list. Because if you just look at it as one thing, everything feels the same amount of urgency. And you also don't have the categorization, let's say, available to you to recognize, oh, I could do all four of these things require the same kind of energy, and I'll be in the same room for them. So let's do those four at the same time. I think that our to-do list rises to the degree of the most difficult thing on it. And so if you look at your list and you have this one big thing on there and it's like, oh, it makes the whole list feel that way, and it's so hard to get anything done. So I think, Lighten the Load there are multiple steps to it. But for example, one of the things that you could do is you could sort your list by urgency. One of my favorite ways to do that, it's now, soon, later, and never mind. So if you go through your list and you're like, okay, what needs to be done now? Like for real. And now is relative. Now could be literally today, or now could just be first. There's not like a date attached to it. And then soon, it's like, I do need to take care of this soon, but not before I take care of these now things. Later is, all right, it's on my mind. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it, but I don't have to, that's not urgent right now. That can be later. And then never mind is sometimes we just get things stuck in our heads that we're like, oh, I need to do this right now. Maybe it's attached to something we think we should do. There's some pressure there, or we're just worried about something that's down the road. So it's kind of on our minds and we're just like, hey, never mind. You don't need to think about that right now. That's taking energy away from things that do matter right now. And it's okay to let that go.
And I know you also say it's important to keep the individual items on your to-do list small as well, right?
My favorite to-do list tip, do not. I usually am not very bossy. This is a time I'm very bossy. Do not put projects on your to-do list. And when I say a project, I mean just like clean out the closet. Please don't put that on your to-do list. Do you know why? That takes a long time. You've got to start smaller than that. I think one of the biggest reasons why our to-do lists overwhelm us is because we're putting singular projects as one item. And that's just too much for our brains to handle. It's much easier to say, go into the hall closet and distribute the toilet paper amongst the bathrooms, as opposed to clean out the closet. You can do that piece, or like refold the towels. That's doable. You could do that right now. You can have a kid do that. So that's my biggest to-do list, actionable tip. Stop putting projects on your to-do list.
And another thing that makes your book really stand out is that you actually mention hormones, personality, life stages. How can people think about that or incorporate that?
The existing productivity industry really just makes us feel like robots. We've said that in several ways already. We're taught that life is like putting together a puzzle. You create The future that you want is like the picture on the front of the box. And so you have to make choices that fit your puzzle together. There's not a lot of fluidity in a puzzle, right? I love doing puzzles in my free time, but my life is not a puzzle. Life is more like painting. And I think about all of these elements of who we are being like the colors on our palette, our hormones, our personality, the sleep we got this week. Like there are all kinds of things every day that we're bringing into our day that cannot help but impact how we make our choices, how we spend our time, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to other people. And so being aware of those things, and it's not diminishing your life to just the to-do list you have to check off and the invisible future that you're trying to make your way toward at the expense of where you are right now and who you are right now. I want people to bring who they are today into their decision-making more.
And everything you just talked about, plus kind of the idea of being kind to yourself, which we talked about earlier as well, is, what to do when you're feeling tired or you maybe don't get as much done as you originally planned. But on the other side of things, I know you've talked about what to do after you've had a really productive day that maybe you feel great about. What can we learn from that and maybe not do after a really productive day as well?
The tendency is when we've had a really productive day, what we try to do is replicate everything. We're like, okay, what did we do? There was something about what I did today, and I got to replicate that tomorrow. And then you become a robot again. And what we're doing is, again, inflating the P of that plan. We're inflating the preparation again. And instead, what I'm inviting everyone into is to enjoy it, be there, and go, this is a really great day. But it doesn't mean I'm a really great person. It doesn't necessarily mean that I was really great at preparing. Sometimes we just have a day where like everyone's pretty chill, or like we hit all the green lights, or the thing that we were going to the store to buy is on sale, or our boss really liked the thing that we turned in. Like there are lots of different things outside of our control that can make a day feel like really good. And I think we sort of lose the joy of living in those moments by trying to replicate them the next day. If something works out again, great. You can notice, oh, hey, I wonder if my making this choice impacted this thing. Maybe we can do it again and see. We're going to start small with this one thing. We're going to make this little adjustment tomorrow, and we're going to see. That is a different energy than frantically examining your day and then being like a crazy town robot the next day, trying to replicate everything.
For those people who have kids, and it's that time of year, back to school time, and really the end of summer can mean things are busier at work for a lot of people too. So what's a top tip or two for people to best approach this particular time of year?
I would say that what you choose today, what you choose for this season that you are in, is not what you have to choose forever. Sometimes when we're really overwhelmed by the transition into a new season, we think we need to have, all of our ducks in a row, like we said, that everything needs to be in place. And maybe you make a choice. Maybe there's a choice that you feel in your soul that you need to make for this, first week of school or whatever. And you want your kids, let's say, for example, like for me, one of the things moving into the first week of school is I really want my kids to come home and feel safe. And I want them to eat food that's comforting to them. But let's say at the same time that is happening, you also have a transition at work, and you've got like a lot on your plate at work. And so figuring out how you're going to cook food that's nourishing to your family for that particular week or two, that just feels so overwhelming. But you don't make the choice to say like, okay, we're going to do takeout, or we are going to have this really, really simple thing, or I'm going to cook this one meal and we're going to have it 3 days, or, something like that, because you don't want that to be the answer for the whole fall or for the whole school year or whatever. And so you don't make that choice for where you are now because you think that what you choose now is what you have to choose forever. And that's just not true. You can look at the tiny seasons that you are in, those 1 to 2 week seasons even, and you can go, what do I need for this? And let's do that.
When it comes to time management, what's kind of the number one thing you hope people take away from this episode and maybe even from your new book?
That the goal of compassionate time management is not to get your stuff done. It's not necessarily making you better at getting your stuff done. It's making you kinder to yourself when you don't. You still can get your stuff done, but there are days where we don't. And wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if our posture towards ourselves is, hey, you know what? Today was a tough day. That was a tough day. We did not get that stuff done, and that's a bummer, and we're going to adjust tomorrow. But you're not going to beat yourself up. You're not going to buy a new planner. You're not going to get angry at your family and start throwing all their stuff in a big black trash bag and taking it outside because you can't take it anymore. Like, we are more reasonable and compassionate and kind as opposed to reactive and focused on our circumstances. When you start there, handling your circumstances, whether good or bad or anywhere in between, it just feels a lot easier.
Well, thank you so much to the lazy genius, Kendra Adachi, for sharing such great advice, strategies, and mindsets when it comes to time management. Definitely go pre-order her book now. It's called The Plan, Manage Your Time Like a Lazy Genius. You can also check out her 2 other books and add the Lazy Genius podcast to your playlist. We have links to it all in our episode notes on thenewsworthy.com. Thank you so much for joining us today and for lazy geniusing your news consumption and morning routine by listening to The Newsworthy every weekday. We get you all caught up on the news you need to know in just over 10 minutes. So we'll be back on Monday with the day's news. Until then, have a great weekend.